Hello and welcome to the Out of Bounds Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Harrison. Today I'm joined with a special guest today, Esteban Romo. He's one of my great friends in the gym industry. A lot of people know that I manage a local gym in my area, and he's one of my good friends, and I want to bring him on the show today. Esteban comes on the show with 10 years of football experience. So we're going to talk some sports. We're going to talk draft. We're going to talk about his favorite team. And if y'all can see my video, we're going to talk about his favorite team, and it's not the Cowboys, which I'm going to have a problem with. But we're going to have an interesting show. But first, we're going to begin with a brief introduction from Esteban, and we're going to get into our topics of the day. So Esteban, you have the floor. So go ahead and tell everyone where you're from, tell them about your experiences and things like that.
Cool. Yeah. Growing up in the DFW area pretty much all my life. Like you said, played football for a good 9, 10 years. Then actually moved away my freshman year. So being in Grand Prairie, Dallas area, just a big area, a lot of people in there, big population. And actually moved down south by Austin, actually technically an hour northeast of Austin to a little town called Thorndale, Texas. And that was a population of 1,200. So, I mean, there is probably from pre-K all the way up to senior, 500 people, 500 kids in that area. My graduating class was somewhere around, I think it was like 40 or something like that, 30 or 40, something like that. But what kind of got us there is, the football. I love football. And I remember we were searching. My dad got relocated from his job to Austin. And we were kind of just searching for a house at that time, looking at all these. And I just remember seeing a huge billboard, and it had state championships on it. And for each state championship, it had the team and the person's name on there. Then as we went and looked at the other side of the billboard, had other state championships, not just for football. The football one was the highlighted one, but then you had more that were track and tennis and baseball, stuff like that. So I was just like, man, that's awesome. Sports being a big thing for me in my life. When I saw that, I was like, this is the place I need to be at. We just happened to see another vehicle there. It ended up being the assistant coach, which would eventually be my head coach for my football team. And he made some calls right then and there, found at least like 3 houses that were on the market. We liked one of them, and so we moved there, pretty much ASAP with that. But that was a whole other, can of worms that I wasn't expecting. I probably would have stayed in Grand Prairie if I could. At that time, I was pretty much the next one to be starting on varsity as a sophomore year, or at least be on the varsity team my sophomore year. And going over there was even for a small town, like football was the bread and butter there. It was just like how you see it in Friday Night Lights, or Friday Night Lights, how you see it in Varsity Blues. It was just like that. It was king over there, and so these guys, they just love their football there. So I mean, the competition was even greater at that little level than it was at like Grand Prairie High. So it was actually surprising. I actually didn't make varsity till my junior year over there, because I had a couple guys that were like 6'5" and 6'4", and they were all state and all that. So I had to kind of wait, and me being coming from a 5A school, I kind of came in there very cocky with it, and I got humbled really quick, and it was pretty crazy. And just being in that small town, had to go through a lot more things. I was having a hard time adjusting. I remember I came in and I was wearing it was the summertime, and I got me some new Jordans. I had the new Jordans. I had some new Gary Paytons. I don't know if you remember, they're like the black and white ones.
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So I came in there. I had the new Tommy, Tommy Hilfiger jeans and all this nice designer stuff that when you wore it to the city, you kind of, I guess, shown as a little bit of a status symbol that you had a little bit of wealth. And I remember seeing all these other kids, and they had holes in their jeans, and their shirts weren't really name brand, and they all looked at me like, what the hell's wrong with this kid? Like, what is he doing? I stuck out like a sore thumb. But whenever I started talking to them until I played football, they kind of lit up, and they were excited for that. And then it was just kind of about time to prove myself, and that's when I was kind of in for a rude awakening and figuring out like, man, this is they got some good talent out here. I was expecting just to kind of get in there and assert myself and be the top dog, but they have a lot of good athletes. There's a lot of like my senior year, the guys won. Uh, they still, I don't know if they still have anymore, but they had a state record for 400-meter relay. And so, I mean, I had my quarterback ran a 4.3, my running back ran a 4.3, and the other guys that were running with them, I think, were either high 4.3s or a little low 4.4s. And so they had some speed on them. They had some class act, guys, that small guys. I mean, I think they had one guy that ended up going to Green Bay. He played for Green Bay back in the day, and then another one I think made it to Minnesota. So for that being a small town, they actually had a lot of success for football and sports. I mean, there's probably two people in the whole school that didn't actually play any sports, and they were considered kind of the nerdy people and all that. But you had to play some type of sport there.
With that being said, and you spoke briefly about some of the accomplishments that the school made, but I want to know some of your personal accomplishments while you were at the school, and also whenever you saw the billboard in the state championships and things like that, did you ever envision your name being enshrined as well, with that school being so big on football and sports?
Yeah, as far as like any kind of personal things, I didn't see a whole lot of success. As far as like what I thought I was going to be at, because I came from just dominating at every, pretty much every level of football, and I had a good junior year. What kind of messed me up is I ended up having an ankle issue, and it was just on one play. I was already having really good stats that year for my first varsity game. I want to say I had like I think 3 sacks. I had 10 tackles and 2 fumble recoveries all in one game. So I was like, man, this is gonna be a good year for me. The next game we go play again. I had 1 fumble recovery already and a tackle for loss. And the second series of defense, I just kind of remember out of the corner of my eye some guy coming from my leg, and he got me at a good time to where it popped out my ankle. My cleats were stuck in the ground. He hits me, cracks me from the side, and it totally just popped my ankle. And I was so mad because I know at that time I thought I was broken, and I was just furious. And I never felt pain like that before, and so I was just like, man. And so it took me a while. I went off for 2 games, came back, and I rushed it. Next thing you know, I end up twisting it again in practice, and had to wait again. And so that whole year, I was pretty much kind of useless, because for one, not only that, but when I came back, my ankle felt good, but mentally, anytime somebody got low on me, I had to stop instead of just being kind of fearless and running through the line. I got scared and I would stop and I would try to like put my hands on them to.
So you always kind of like you would pretty much brace yourself for like the contact, and that was impacted by the previous injury.
Yeah, because I mean, I used to have a killer instinct, and even still, my senior year, even though it was really good, I got first team All State for defensive end, and also for tackle offensive lineman. For both sides, I had to play both ways. I got noticed for that, and it being such a small school, and then my stature, only got some D3. Looked at by some D3 schools. But just yeah, I mean that kind of just stopped the killer instinct because ever since like my freshman year, I used to watch. I remember I got a VHS a VHS tape, and it was football's 100 toughest players. And of course, being a Steeler fan, remember Greg Lloyd. He kind of talked a little bit about being raised with a chip on his shoulder. Like he didn't really have his family there backing him. Sometimes it would be just him going to the game playing by himself. And he says he'd see little Johnny over there, and little Johnny had his mom and dad, hey, have a great game. And in his mind, he's like, man, I'm gonna rub little Johnny's dirt, face in the dirt. He played it ferocious, and he said that if you saw a hand on the ground, he might step on it with a cleat. And that was kind of my mentality. When I saw that, I know it probably wasn't right, but that was my mentality. Even Dick Butkus, seeing him, they played with just like a true hatred for that, who their competitor was. That's what gave them their mental edge. And that's kind of how I used to play. And I played just furious, fast and furious, not caring. I got mad. I was psyching myself up before the game just to know that my competition actually showed up and thought they could be on the same field with me. And that was my mentality. And I felt a little bit invincible. And just that whole situation on my ankle, it really took that away. And I bounced back and had a pretty good senior year, but I didn't have that killer instinct. Kind of was gone still. And I don't, I never got that back pretty much.
Man, I never knew, like, we talk, often, being coworkers in the gym industry and things like that. And a lot of the things that we talk about is more so work related. And, I didn't know a lot of the things that we've conversed about, here recently. And it's, very interesting to know that you had such a, great football background and things like that. But I want to segue into our next topic. So we're going to take our first break and then we're going to come back.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right, we're back with Esteban. So we had a really great story about his background and about where he came from and his sports and things like that. So now we're going to segue into our first topic of the day. I want to talk about this breaking news that happened in the NFL a couple of days ago. We texted about it when it first happened, and it dropped that Rob Gronkowski, as everyone knows, Gronk, has reunited with Tom Brady. What was your first thoughts when you heard that Gronk had made his way to Tampa Bay?
Oh, man, they are a serious contender for sure. You got two good receivers. I think it's Godwin and
Mike Evans.
Evans, yeah. I mean, and you got a tight end that's just, me being a Steeler fan, I definitely have some personal, vendetta against Tom Brady and Gronk, especially Gronk. I mean, that's when he played his best football against Pittsburgh. He made our defense, who we are big time, still curtain. We pride ourselves in our defense, and he made us look like a little aluminum,
Right.
So, I mean, he just elevates whenever that happens. So, I mean, just being able to have seen them and know what they're capable of, and seeing them take that into Tampa Bay. Me and you kind of talked a little bit off, through text or whatever about, what does their defense look like, But
right.
Offense is going to be definitely, you can check that off. And right now, the NFL looks like it's more of an offensive game, so they definitely have a one up on that one. I would say they're definitely playoff contenders, and man, it's kind of crazy how it just turns around in just less than a year.
The biggest concern for me, as you know, Jameis Winston was at the helm last year. He had a record for touchdown and interceptions. He threw 30 picks in a single season, which I believe is an NFL record. Now, we know that over the course of the last 4.5 years, Tom Brady has not threw that many picks. I think the total was 27 in 4 years. But you had Jameis do that in a season. So we know Tom Brady is going to protect the football, but the only thing is he going to have time in the pocket with this offensive line. It's been abysmal in Tampa Bay. Jameis was literally on the run, running for his life, and we know that at 43 years old, Tom Brady is not mobile, and he's never been that. So what are your thoughts on that?
Man, he has I guess, I don't think New England, well, that was kind of a question mark too, man, as far as like, did they really have an offensive line? Because to me, an offensive line is, you got to establish a run game. And the Patriots, I mean, they really didn't have, they're not known for their run game. Look how many kind of some running backs that went through there. They didn't have a consistent running back. Whenever you hear about a good run game or a good offensive line, like the Dallas Cowboys have had one of the top lines. And, you also got Zeke as a running back. But, man, there's some times where there's holes in there that I could run through there and get a good 10 yards,
The only running back that New England had that I really liked was when they got Corey Dillon that 1 year after the Bengals let him go. You remember when they got Corey Dillon?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the better, out of all of them that I can remember, throughout Tom Brady's tenure with the team. Corey Dillon had to been the one that really stuck out to me. They had some other talented ones, but that's the one that really stuck out to me, like the big name running back.
Yeah.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he did win a title with them during his time there. Not a lot of people do that, because I think Randy Moss came out there and they lit it up that year, and then they ended up losing to Eli and the Giants on a fluky a touchdown, like that catch. I mean, not a touchdown, that catch. You remember that catch?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I remember LeGarrette Blount being there just because he left from the Steelers. He was a great one. We had like a little 1-2 punch going there, and he was really strong running back for us. Kind of finish it up, kind of a closer. And he's always had some off the field issues. And I believe he like left during halftime or something, and that's what kind of cut his ties with Pittsburgh, and he ends up going to New England. And I just remember like, oh man, when he was a beast for them too. As far as like just still being a closer. But but I think just Tampa Bay, that offense, I think that they'll be fine. Brady finds a way. What'll be kind of crazy to see will be that Byron Leftwich is the coordinator there, the offensive coordinator. And how do you that has to be an intimidating situation. Leftwich, he had some success in there, but he was never the caliber of a Tom Brady. So it's going to be kind of crazy to see how they both will kind of gel together to see if they can get something going, because that's got to be a definitely an intimidating situation for Leftwich, having to work with Brady.
No doubt. Just because if you think about it, Leftwich did play in the league while Tom Brady was in the league as well. He's not that much younger than Tom Brady, and the accomplishments that Tom Brady has had, Byron Leftwich didn't even have that during his own career. So it would be interesting to see how that relationship, correlates on the football field. And knowing that, you have an accomplished quarterback, 6 Super Bowl rings. I mean, he's had a record season, like his run in the NFL, 20 years, one team. So it's going to be interesting to see how that gels and everything comes together. We're definitely going to be paying attention to that in the NFC.
Yeah.
So the next topic I wanted to kind of touch on a little bit. Enough about Tom Brady. I want to talk about the draft, the NFL draft. I did a draft segment my last show, and we talked about the 2 top named quarterbacks that were mentioned in the draft. Also, the draft this year is going to be littered with wideouts, like great wideouts, which is going to be very interesting to see how where the chips will fall with these different teams that are in need of a player at the wide receiver position. So I kind of want to talk about your team needs, losing, great players in Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, which we'll get to him in a little bit. We have a whole segment on your thoughts about his impact and, how he left the team in shambles. We'll talk about it. But I guess, do you see y'all drafting a wide out? Because I don't think Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be, the wide receiver that we thought he was going to be. He got injured last year, and we saw what he's, what's going to happen, what a kind of glimpse of what's going to happen moving forward at the wideout position with him being at number 1. Now he's seeing these double teams, versus whenever Antonio Brown was there. Antonio Brown was getting those double teams. So that means that you have Juju on the outside, getting open, getting down the field. So now the focus of the offense is going to be on Juju Smith-Schuster. And can he fill this void, that they had? Is he going to hold up when Ben Roethlisberger get back? Do you see yourself, as a fan and the team drafting a wideout, with the draft being so littered with exceptional talent?
Man, I kind of thought about this a little bit to see what our needs are going to be. And the problem with our team is we have so many question marks, like I don't think we do have definitely some some holes in our armor a little bit, but they're not really. They could be greater, like same thing like quarterback, like Ben Roethlisberger. I don't know what to expect from him because I only got to see him against New England, and New England was on fire at the beginning of the season. I don't know how much his elbow pain played into that. Was he a little bit injured before the season? Because the first game we got walloped. It was like 30-3. There was no offense there.
Right. That was against New England, actually. Remember? That was New
Yeah,
England.
so I don't know what Ben, if he was hurt or not. I haven't seen any reports when it comes to that. So I would love to say that I hope Ben comes back, and we still got a pretty good offensive line. Our window's definitely closing, but I don't see that we have any kind of really emergency. I guess we could say the receiver thing, but with me, man, Juju's my boy. Like, man, I know he had a bad season, if you want to categorize it like that. He definitely was a learning experience, but with the rise of, I believe it's Deontay Johnson, or he kind of played really good. He has some really great speed. Washington, unfortunately, has been a little bit consistent, but these are guys that there's three guys right there that show that they do have some promising potential. So I mean, we're hoping that they can come in and assert themselves, just like with Connor. James Connor. He can be just a great back. And for a while, it was like Le'Veon who. You had James Connor coming in, and he was even better. With me, I'm more of a, I guess you can call me more of a hardcore type football player. Like, I'd like to line it up and run it down their throat every time, which now that's not what football is about anymore. It's changed drastically since then. But I like the way that he ran, because he would put his helmet down and hit you. Le'Veon was more about flashiness, and he had to kind of stop and hesitate, and honestly really never liked that style. So I mean, he was a great football player. He really did good for us, and we had a lot of success with him. But if it wasn't for Connor having so many health issues, I'd be fine with him in the saying goodbye to Le'Veon Bell. But there's also been some talks about possibly getting him back from the Jets, because he was actually in Pittsburgh and visiting, stuff like that. So
That would be a good pickup. I
mhm.
know that you said that you're not really into that, but teams are more so successful, in my opinion, if you have a do it all back. Like, you have a back catching it out of the backfield. If you have a receiver that you can't get down the field, and you have that back that can, equally be good with his hands as well as his legs. That definitely, is like a shocking arm for any offense. If you have, like, if you go back and look at some of the backs that are doing it now, like, for us, we have Zeke, with the exception of last season, because I don't know what happened last season. But Zeke has been, good for us catching the ball at the backfield. There's other backs that are, good, with their hands, and catching the ball out the backfield. So I think having that versatility from the running back position is going to be where the league is kind of going.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, the backs that are doing it all, like I think Christian McCaffrey just got paid, handsomely from his team. And I think that he deserved, to get paid, because, if you run the ball like he does, I think he's getting the ball 20, 30 touches, man. And then that right there, man, just, it's going to be a lot of wear and tear on his body. I don't really foresee that that workload to be, um, basically consistent, because he's not going to be able to keep doing that. I think maybe 5 or 6 years at best. I mean, he's young now, but he's small.
Mhm.
And that right there, is a concern for me. You pay a back all that money, and the next couple of years, he might be a shell of his former self, because he's been overused. You start getting that wear and tear on your body. You get that mileage on your legs and things like that. And your production start to dwindle. It might be another situation like Todd Gurley. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely the running back position has to be that now. There's nothing else. So if you don't have Henry on your back of your jersey, has
Yeah,
to be your game.
yeah.
That's what makes Henry so special to watch him, because man, he's just a
He's so
bulldozer.
big, man. He's huge.
Yeah, But I mean, look how it just goes to show you, like you said, the wear and tear. Look at Gurley 2 years ago. I mean, it was just on a tear, unstoppable, like
He got
just
paid, man.
so good. And
Yeah, he got paid handsomely too from the Rams, but they just let him go. Like
yeah,
he like they had I think until a certain time they had to pay like $10 million, and right before that last hour or whatever, he was released from just
yeah,
released. And what I hate is that I'm a Cowboy fan. Our metric was the Todd Gurley contract and paying Ezekiel Elliott. And
yeah,
I'm a Zeke supporter. I love Zeke. I love the way he played. We've had some issues with off the field, but at the end of the day, I'm running with Zeke. I like Zeke. I like how aggressive he runs, but his style of play is not going to hold up for another 5 or 6 years. He's not going to be able to be around as long as his contract is. His contract is going to have him in a Cowboys jersey for the foreseeable future. But his style of running, man, I mean, he's a bruiser and he's small.
yeah,
And I was watching his last football game in Ohio State, and I was like, man, we got to get a running back. We got to get Zeke if he becomes available to us with that fourth pick that year. And a lot of people thought that we could possibly went and got let me think of his name. It was a cornerback for Jacksonville. You remember that?
Ramsey,
Which one?
Jalen Ramsey,
Jalen
Ramsey.
Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey. And I like Ramsey. I really did. I thought that he was a aggressive back. But if it ain't Deion Sanders, man, like if you don't have that same play like Deion, there's not going to be another Deion. I don't think in my lifetime I'll never see another prime. Like
Yeah,
prime time was it for me. That's my metric of grading a cornerback, and we haven't seen that since prime time. So I was really out on Jalen, especially since we lost Murray with the production that he brought to the team the year that we had him. He had a record-breaking season, and we didn't see that when he left and went to the Eagles.
yeah,
He ended up ultimately retiring after that. If you look at it, and for me, if you have a football team, you have a high production year like Murray had, and they let him go to a crosstown rival, a division rival.
yeah,
Really don't have whole lot of respect for the guy. They know what he can do. They watching him train. They see what he eats and things like that. So they knew what was coming down the pipe for him. They ran him into the dirt. Got all those carries on his body, and basically just let him sign with another team. So we needed a back. We needed to establish the run because if you think about it, the running back position is not devalued like everyone says it is. The running back position is only devalued when it comes time to pay their contracts because you have different backs that can do more than just run the ball out of the backfield.
yeah,
And Zeke is one of those all-purpose backs. We're definitely gonna, see a difference and emergence in this system that we have here. And the only concern that I have with my Dallas Cowboys is the coach and how they use the run. When I watch some of the Green Bay Packer games
mm,
and how they were using their backs in Green Bay that last and final year, and what I didn't see in Green Bay, they didn't really use their backs like that. They
yeah,
was really relying a lot on Aaron Rodgers and things like that. And if you're going to rely solely on the quarterback, I like that to a certain extent.
mm,
And the reason why I say that is because he had an incredible season last year. We went 8-8.
mm,
Quarterback is the most important position on the field.
yeah,
I mean, regardless, he has all the intangibles. He has the leadership skills. He has the locker room. But when it comes to making plays and it's do or die, and we're needing a play, we needing a score. I'm not sure that he's our home run hitter. And
yeah,
the only reason why I feel like the Cowboys are hesitant on his contract and getting this deal done is because they're not 100% completely sold on their product on the field. They, I mean, Dak is good. He's good, but
Yeah.
is he elite? Is he Russell Wilson? No. He's not. These other,
Ben
tier quarterbacks.
Roethlisberger.
Yeah, yeah, like I wouldn't say that. Because we need to see. We he's gonna have Roethlisberger on the back of that jersey next year, but and we're gonna expect Roethlisberger to be who he's been. But we need to see what that injury did. For sure. It's going to be a lot better than what y'all had. I know that you're going to be excited to have him back on, in that uniform and, back on the field, kind of put, some of the, blunders to bed that y'all had last year with the two quarterbacks that stunk it up that y'all had last year. But, just going back to the Cowboys, I just don't think that with Dak, he's never really specifically said what his contract demands are. We've kind of speculated that it's north of $35 million. So what do you think about that? What do you think about Dak? Have you been able to watch any of his games? Have you been able to watch some of his press conferences? I know that you're not really a fan, but I know that you actually are a fan of the game. But I just want to know what your thoughts of with Dak, commanding such a large contract with us coming off an 8-8 season.
Well, being in the Dallas area, it's like, we only play about once every 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer. So I actually do know a pretty good amount of Dallas Cowboys, especially from back in the day and kind of what's going on. And I was listening to like sports radios, and of course, Cowboys is like the number one topic on there. So I think these are all just what happens when having that great draft class. I mean, you got
Right.
two great players, and so this was coming down the pipeline, and so y'all been able to enjoy it for the past 3 or 4 years. It's been a great ride. A lot of I know not a Super Bowl coming out of this, but it's been a nice ride for y'all considering what's been happening in the past. The past 15 years before that. And so that's what happens is whenever you hit it big like that, you're in a situation like this. And unfortunately, both are requiring a lot of money. And, because I think Dak should get paid. In fact, if I had to pick between Dak and Elliott, probably going against the grain here, I'd actually probably pick Dak. Only because it's not necessarily, like you were saying, the running back position seems like a lot of people think is devalued. The problem is that the value is in a short time period. Running back's longevity is not super long. Emmitt Smith's record, is probably going to be intact, for a long time because now that's just not part of the game anymore. Running back's just not going to run it too much, and if they do, then they're only going to last probably about 5 or 6 years in the league. But look how good like Leonard Fournette was when he came in. Now he's kind of a little bit washed up now. Todd Gurley looking like he's on the path to being washed up. And so, really statistically, Zeke might have another year or two. Dak, statistically, he could still probably be doing something in a good 5 years. It's more likely that he'll still be, doing pretty well in another 5 years. I mean, look at Tom Brady being, what is he, like
43.
I know he's kind of out there, but you also have some other quarterbacks that are in their late 30s. So, I mean, it seems like it would pay off a little bit more, being Dak. And kind of looking at it this way, I would love to have Dak on the Steelers team. I would be stoked if he was on the Steelers team.
Calm
Even
down.
if he was backing up Ben Roethlisberger, or even if he took Roethlisberger's spot, let's say that he came in, something happened and he came in, and I would be happy because now I got youth back there. Ben's on his way out. This could be his last year, more likely will be his last year. I'd be super stoked from a fan point of view to get somebody like Dak to be my quarterback. I'd be super happy. I'd also be happy with Zeke coming in as well, but I don't think that'd be a very long, enjoyable thing. So that might be kind of where that's a little bit of mismanagement on Jerry's part. kind of giving in to what Zeke wanted, and because the Steelers don't play that, that's why we lost. That's why we lost Le'Veon. He
Right.
was a great player and was an elite running back, but if you sit out, that's what's going to happen. Look at all the receivers that we lost: Antonio Holmes, Plaxico Burress. It's just shown that if you do that to the Steelers, you pretty much just signed your letter to go. To leave. You gave us your notice that you're going to be out of there. They don't really handle that kind of stuff, and I feel that that's why we're always competitors. Going every year. It's pretty much Super Bowl or bust for us. Especially last year, since we had a bad season, we still went 8-8. And we weren't supposed to be that great, but we made some moves in there that kind of put us in a position for this year. But yeah, I mean that's just a tough situation. You still got two great players, especially if you can get it done with Dak. But now you're gonna start suffering. So if they do sign Dak these next 3 or 4 years, every other position is going to start suffering pretty badly, and I think you're going to start seeing that decline. So it would definitely be a win now type thing. So yeah, I mean that's you got your line that's starting to weaken. Even your top dog, Tyrone Crawford. He's that he's not just this invincible being anymore, because before, I mean, he used to be lights out. Now you got to be worried, is he going to stay healthy? And if he's not, it changes your whole dynamic of your offense just from that one offensive lineman.
And then losing Frederick,
Yeah,
we lost Frederick. That was a big blow. So it's going to be interesting to see what Dallas does with that first pick in the
yeah,
draft. We have the 17th pick, and there's a lot of needs, on both sides of the ball.
hmm
There's a lot of voids to fill, and I was kind of lukewarm about the the pairing with Dallas and Mike McCarthy,
hmm
because with Mike McCarthy, that last and final season in Green Bay, you can just tell that he didn't. The offense wasn't innovative. We knew that the offense was ran through Aaron Rodgers. It lived and died with Aaron Rodgers,
hmm
and he's a prolific quarterback, and
yeah,
you already know that. When
hmm
12 is back there, magic happens. He tortures our team tremendously every time we get to play Green Bay. It's always some kind of magic that happens when he's back there.
yeah,
And I think when you coaching, coming from the coaching pedigree, Mike McCarthy, he's had um, great quarterbacks throughout his career. I think that he was on the coaching staff when Steve Young was in San Francisco.
yeah,
So he's always been blessed to have great quarterbacks.
yeah,
And how much of his success has been his coaching.
hmm
It just like it just goes, so like you have good talent around you or whatever, and I just don't see. I need to see like his innovation, like his like what his offense really entails, and because we don't really we have a star on the rise, but he's always had like great opportunities to coach great quarterbacks, and then you get Brett Favre. He had Favre, for a few years, and then right after Favre, you get Aaron Rodgers. Like you couldn't script that career, and then he wins a Super Bowl, at the AT&T Stadium.
yeah.
Um, back in I think it's 2011 when they won that.
Yeah, we don't want to bring that up either because that was against the Steelers.
I wasn't even gonna say it. I wasn't even gonna say it. How many does Ben have now? He has three now, don't he?
He's got two. Should
Oh,
be
two.
Packers cheat
Okay,
code.
yeah, he went 3 and 1 2.
Yeah.
I remember when they won that title in Detroit. When
hmm
I think it was Jerome Bettis' last year. That was the first one. But even then, like he wasn't, Big Ben was a blip on the radar on that team. Like they had all kinds of talented on both sides of the ball,
Yeah.
and he wasn't, that leader. Even both Super Bowl titles that he has, it wasn't. and excuse me, if I'm wrong, I'm not trying to ruffle your feathers here. It wasn't because of him. Those two Super Bowls that they won, it wasn't because of him. Um, they had great talent around him, and after all those talented people left, we know that Big Ben is a great quarterback. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame, but his leadership is in question. What has he done since all the other pieces has left when he was the guy?
Yeah.
They haven't really, done anything since then. All the great people that has walked out of that building has played on Heinz Field, has been under Cowher, has been under Tomlin the first few years of his career.
Yeah.
Big Ben hasn't done anything since. Like they make the playoffs, cool. But you said that it's championship or bust,
Yeah.
and he hasn't really proven himself as a leader. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah. He shows some invincibility at times, just being able to extend the play. Also, that's been attributed to us having just great receivers that have come out of there. I mean, Antonio Brown being the top one, but you also believe Santonio Holmes, or is it Plaxico Burress or Santonio Holmes, that were the original starter, and you had Antonio Brown as an up and comer that really wasn't seen too much as somebody who was going to be that great, but he had glimpses of it. And then Emmanuel Sanders, we had him as well, and Nate Washington. So, I mean, these are guys that you have those that went over to lead other teams once they left there, and they weren't even the number one prospect, and then, of course, having your running backs. But, yeah, I mean, for being a vocal leader, I don't really see him as being that. But from what you hear from other players, even on the defensive side, you hear a lot of good things about him. I think really the only person that's ever kind of really spoke negatively was Antonio Brown, which he's kind of losing his mind pretty much. But he kind of retracted that statement, said that, pretty much reached out to him, said that he didn't really know how good he had it type thing, with Big Ben. And so, I mean, I think he's asserted himself, and he's definitely led some, like, in the Super Bowl against the Cardinals. That was a comeback type thing that we had to do when he found Santonio Holmes in the end zone. It kind of showed that type of leadership, and drove it down the field and got that last touchdown, which was insane. That's like one of the craziest finishes ever, with that. But he's definitely always had a good defense to lean on, for
Right.
the most part. So I mean that I can kind of see where that comes from, but I definitely wouldn't want to have it any other way. I wouldn't want to have any other kind of quarterback, because I feel like he's put us in the great position. Even his rookie year that he first started with us, the team went 15-1, and he started about 5 games in. But I remember they were a good team, and they beat the Patriots, and then they also beat another top team back to back. And he was playing, like, he started those games, and that was as pretty much as a rookie, or first year quarterback coming in. So I got a lot of admiration for him, and that's why I'm hoping that he can kind of get his last one. Whether I don't think we'll win a Super Bowl or anything coming out of this. It'd be nice, but I just want him to have another little successful season, and then just kind of ride off, ride off into the sunset, and then leave us to kind of scramble and figure out who's going to pick up the pieces after that.
Mason Rudolph.
Oh man, gosh,
You, you don't want to talk about Mason Rudolph?
I'm a big Longhorn fan, like diehard Longhorn fan. I love my Longhorns. I don't really pay attention to any other college, so I mean, I know that they had good receivers coming out, but I'm wrapped up in all Texas Longhorns, and it's been kind of a tough one. But he was an Oklahoma State guy, so I really don't care too much for him. To me, I think he's a little bit of a whiner.
Yeah.
And, there's some allegations of something that he had said. And whether he said it or not, just him whining would make me want to hit him with a helmet. myself.
Yeah, I watched that play, man. I'm kind of like, for me, we're going back to just so the listeners, know what we're talking about. The play at the end of the game against them and the Browns,
Yeah,
and when um, the guy struck him, with the helmet,
yeah,
it had to been something said for
yeah,
a man to try to rip the helmet off and then hit him with it.
yeah.
There had to been something. Now, it hasn't came out yet,
Hmm.
still yet, but for him to attempt to remove this man's helmet and strike him with it,
Yeah,
he had to had said something to provoke that reaction.
yeah.
And we wasn't there. You know, it's unfounded what was said and what happened.
Mm.
But um, Miles Garrett, he's never been that. He's never really shown that kind of character.
Yeah,
In the past, at least I haven't seen it. I don't really follow the Browns like that. I mean, who does?
yeah.
But moving right along, we talked a little bit about AB, and this is, this is gonna be the last couple topics. We're gonna talk about AB a little bit, and then we're gonna, start ending the show. But what could have been? Let's talk about that. Like, you have an immensely talented wideout,
Yeah,
Hall of Fame wideout, without a question. If he didn't have any off the field issues, because
yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's in consideration now. Going into the hall, it has that plays a big factor in you getting in. But what could have been? You have a wide receiver that had all the accolades, all the records. I think he had 6 seasons over 1,200 yards, and he's immensely talented. He can get out of his breaks quick, man. He can, take top off the coverage. He can play the slot. He's small. With how small he is, he looks like a slot receiver, but he can get down deep too.
yeah,
Just that one game he played for the Patriots, like you could just see, like you can already say, book them a ticket. They're gonna go to the Super Bowl. That's what kind of wide receiver Antonio Brown is. He's still quick, at 31, I think. He's still quick. He's still, we know he can play. He can get on anybody's roster right now and make an impact. But he just couldn't get out his own way. So what do you think could have been, and what do you think his impact since he's been gone has left your team?
man. Uh, Imagine having just the greatest girlfriend or whatever, and she's just perfect, and all of a sudden, just one day, she's not that interested in you anymore. That's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah.
Just for seeing him growing up, and he's our own crop. Like we made him, kind of not necessarily we didn't make him, but we're the ones that brought him into the NFL. We're the ones that kind of did his thing. He got to study under Santonio Holmes, and was just a number three receiver pretty much. And to see him blossom into what he did is something that was never expected. And the things that he done, like there's so many iconic moments, twerking in the end zone. It's business is booming. Um, the kick from that kick return where he kicked the Brown punter, in the chest, and
Oh man.
so many great moments that were just as a fan, so much to cheer for. Whether you were just a fan of football or you were a Steeler fan, seeing those things made you smile, and you're like, "What?" And caught your attention on ESPN, and it's shared around. So to be a part of that was just something great, and then he's your own.
Right.
He's on your team, so you're like, man, I'm feeling great. But to see that the way things ended, his final games, I was in a complete shock because I'm like, what they're saying that he didn't really want to play. Like, what's going on? And I'm just kind of thinking like, well, receiver diva, that's what receivers do. They have more of that diva type, you know, uh, attitude. And so I'm just thinking it's going to kind of brush over. Then I start hearing that they got a little conflict between him and Big Ben and this and that. I'm still thinking that this will blow over. And then next thing you know, he's going out of Pittsburgh. And I'm just like, man, like what happened? Just sitting here like, these questions that are just like going through my head, like, how do we just lose like the number one receiver? And so I mean, just it's a shame. There's so much talent that he's wasted now, and I guess the number one thing is for him to see somebody, and hopefully he's getting the help that he needs. But even to this day, I start seeing those rumors about him trying to come back. Even Tomlin said that once a Steeler, always a Steeler. He made that comment. That still makes me like hopeful, that he would come back home to us.
I was gonna ask you that. That was gonna be my next question.
Yeah.
Would you accept Antonio Brown back into the fold as a fan if
Oh
he
yeah.
was it was an opportunity where he got his shit together
Mm-hmm.
and now he's on the straight and narrow, got something to prove, because right now it's no team that's really out there that's willing to take that risk. He's a locker room hazard.
Yeah.
We know what he can do on the field. It's
Mm-hmm.
his behavior off the field. It's the stuff that he doing, in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
There's one incident where it was a story that came out. They was in the middle of a team meeting, and Mike Tomlin is routing the group. That's a sacred environment.
Yeah.
You got the coach getting the team ready to go do battle,
Yeah.
and he's on Instagram Live
Mm-hmm.
while
Yeah.
the coach is speaking.
I remember getting on that feed too as well when it happened. I was just like, what's going on here?
Wow, like seriously, Antonio Brown? And like I said, I'm a fan of talent. I love the NFL. I've been a Cowboy fan for all I can remember. My stuff goes back out. When we had Michael Irvin, Alvin Harper, Mike Tuinei. We had those guys, man. Like that's
Yeah.
how far back I go back. And just to see such a talented you know um, football player, and just waste of talent and things like that.
Yeah.
It's very sad. We've seen it before, but not to this extent. Like he need to
Mm-hmm.
be checked for like some kind of CTE or something like that.
Yeah.
So like he really needs to, before he actually gets integrated back into the league. It needs to be a lot of tests. See exactly where his mindset really is, because right now I think Antonio's never really hit rock bottom. He still probably
Yeah.
got a little bit of money. He still got his properties and things like that, and he's still a commodity. But what's going to happen when the NFL, the whole entire league, all 32 teams be like, nope, we're not going to do it?
Yeah.
It's going to be a situation like that, and then we're probably going to see him like in the XFL or the Canadian League or something like that, and
Yeah.
then just talented, just wasted like that, man. Like right now, this is Antonio Brown's prime years. He needs to be in somebody's um, football organization right now, training to get ready for a season. Right now, he's just kind of looking to see who's gonna take a gamble on him, you know. And I think he really, really messed up whenever um, he got released from Oakland, and he was, ran out the house and said, "I'm free, I'm free." And I was like, "Wow, like something is really wrong with this dude, man."
Yeah.
But Esteban, I want to kind of find a landing spot, but I normally have a segment at the end of the show. It's like a little small Q&A. I got
Yeah.
these cards. They're called pod decks. I got about 50 questions. We're not
Mm.
going to go through all 50 questions, but these are called pod decks,
Cool.
and there's basically like these unfiltered questions where you kind of think about the question, and then you give me your feedback on what you think about the question, like your answer to the question. So I'm gonna give you 5 questions from the pod decks card deck, and kind of like tell the listeners like your thought process when it comes to these questions. So I'm gonna get started with that, and then we'll end the show on that note.
All right.
All right. So the first question that we have here: who played you in a movie?
Who would play me in a movie?
Hmm.
Whew, man, that's a good one. Uh, my ego would want to say The Rock because he's just all around badass, you know.
Hmm.
Um, man, I don't really know. There's not too many people that would be kind of that I would say could play me. Um, man, that's a good question. I would say I'd like to have The Rock play me. That'd be a big
Okay,
time honor.
that's cool. That's cool. Um, Now these questions are completely random. I just picked up 5 cards from the deck, and these are like random ass questions. So, um, and answer them the way you feel. So, the next one: which band or artist, dead or alive, would play at your funeral?
um, I'm actually I like. I guess I got a little more of an old school. Like I like to mellow out. You know, one thing that I always had was growing up. I did have a chip on my shoulder. I had a real bad temper, and so I had to go through these more mellow types. So I'm actually a big country fan, but I'm also a big kind of Beatles fan as well.
Okay.
And so I listen to the Beatles. That's what kind of relaxed me. And so if I could get to resurrect, you know, half of them to come back and play, you know, some songs that I think everybody would be happy on that one. But yeah, I'll put
Okay. Wasn't
something
expecting that one.
else.
Next, I don't know how much reading you do, but what belongs on everyone's bookshelf?
Oh man, uh, David Goggins, you can't hurt me.
Okay.
That book is super powerful. I mean, just I'm actually listening to it again for the second time just to hear it again. His story of everything that he had to overcome from abusive father and you know just pretty much you know seeming like he struck out in life and just taking it and saying no, I'm not done. I'm coming back. It's
Right.
the biggest you know resilient human that you could ever think of, and you know, very inspiring story as to everything that he's overcome, and just kind of said that I'm not done yet. His biggest thing said during one of his speeches, he said, "Don't stop until you." He said, "Don't stop when you're tired. Stop when you're done."
Right.
That's all. Been something in my head that I love.
Okay. Definitely have to look into that book, man. It sounds like a very interesting read. Um, Next question: what's left on your bucket list?
Left on my bucket list. I mean, I never. I like being a Texas homebody. I love my state of Texas, and kind of you know that's where I wanted to be. But my younger sister, she's been blessed to have a job where she's been able to travel the country, and just some of the pictures that she's taken have kind of inspired me to start trying to do some traveling eventually. You know, so hopefully I can kind of get into a position where I have you know some spending money to be able to go and see these beautiful sites. You know, like even you've seen pictures of Egypt, but just to be actually able to see the pyramids in front of you, you know, things like that that people have built. And you know, not being necessarily a homebody. I mean, I've always been a homebody, but experiencing different things. I think is what kind of made me want to go to that the Dallas Holocaust Museum and you know human rights. I could read about it, but just to be there and actually have that whole experience of everything is just I think it's just totally different than just being at home and watching a video. Just to be able to go out there and experience those things. So doing some traveling would be definitely on my bucket list. I'd like to do and go see some different spots around the world.
Awesome. Last question: brag to me about the best things going on in the past 30 days. I know it's kind of hard to do that right now because of what's been going on in our world, but
Yeah,
you're pretty interesting. Like I've talked to you about a lot of things that you're into. So I guess like kind of tell me about the last 30 days. What's the best thing that's been going on in your life?
best thing is just family time. I do miss my parents because I haven't seen them, be like within, a couple feet of them. But, I definitely miss them. But just being able to spend time with my two girls, just that's been great. There's a long story about my youngest one, but basically, she was a surprise, like big time. We didn't know that my girl was pregnant with her, and so during that time, that's when I was opening up my new club. I've had a disconnect with her, because I had to open up the new club. I didn't have a lot of time to spend with her. She wasn't living with me, so for her first 4 or 5 months, I wasn't being able to be there like I was for my first child. So I mean, it felt like I was very disconnected with her, even though I know she was my daughter. I just wasn't able to be there for her, and it was frustrating, especially once we started living together. It was hard for me to like try to console her. I couldn't put her to sleep. I couldn't like. It was just like this is somebody's kid, and so and it lasted like that. She just turned 1 on Tuesday, and so even 8 months down the road, I still didn't feel super close. So this past time of being off with this situation, it's really gotten time for me and her to have that bond, in the process of being able to bond. And she knows I'm her father. She knows that I'm somebody that is important in her life. And so, I mean, that's just been, probably the greatest thing out of this whole situation is I've actually had time to be able to have that bond with my daughter that I didn't
Right.
get to have, at that time. So,
Yeah, that's always important to have that family time. Just being off from work for me. It's been a lot of time of reflection. Really trying to figure out what I want to do. In my life.
yeah,
And I really never, with our jobs and our field of what we do, it's pedal to the metal. It's go 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 go. And now you have this time to sit back, reflect. You have more time to do the things that you desire to do when we were working. And now that we're starting to get to the point where we may be returning back to work, I'm not sure how soon
mm,
that may be. Now that we have that time that we had off, now we have more so perspective of things that we want to do, outside of this, because it's not going to be forever. We know that, and
mm,
that was kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to create this podcast to have that, as an out, to have something to kind of work on. I would always often think about wanting to start one and kind of, go and do it. But with the job and the thing that we would, have to do during the week and things like that, I couldn't fathom, adding anything else on my plate, you know,
yeah,
especially something like this.
mm,
But I want to appreciate you for coming on, sharing your story. Um, I know that you have a lot of things that you have going on with your family and things like that. So I really appreciate you hopping on. But before we go, tell everyone what club you manage at, and if you have any kind of social media platform, if you want to shout that out, and then we can end the show on that note.
cool. Yeah, man. Just playing fitness in Northhurst. Pretty much really do the whole social media thing. I kind of don't put everything out there, but something that might be one of those extra things on that bucket list. Seeing you do your podcast, stepping out of something that you're just not familiar with, and to me, seeing that as being successful, I like to see that part of you, and I enjoy listening to your shows. And now with your YouTube video, it's just nice to kind of see and be able to put the I guess get a little more of an emotional connect, physical connection with your podcast, and this has been great, man. So all the best luck to you. Stay motivated with that, and I'm a big fan of it, and I'll continue to support you, man. So good luck with everything.
And I appreciate that. I really do. A lot of people, if you think about it, they say they're with you and they say they will support you and things like that. But I'm a part of that generation where you have to show me that support, and you've definitely shown that support. I can send you an episode and you'll get right on it. You'll listen to it. You'll give me feedback on it and things like that. So I know you're listening to it. I know you're locked in, And I really appreciate that because I don't have a big name out there in the field of podcasting. And for you to, to extend that support, it means all the world to me. Just to have, if I just had one person just to listen to it, or have value in it, I've done what I've set out to do. I'm not trying to, to gain millions of followers or whatever, and things like that. If I can just get one or two, I'm good with that. That's fine to me. I mean, because I'm doing this because I have a passion for it. I love sports. I'm starting to, tap into, starting to, conversate with people more, because how I was before. It's been kind of like a struggle for me to, break out of that comfort zone and, be social and things like that. So I'm doing things, throughout this time that we've had off that I normally wouldn't do. And I think once we do get back to our normal routine, and it's going to only help me, as a manager, to be better, suited for, social environments and things like that, because our jobs are social. You have to have that hat to be able to thrive in, a position that we hold, with our gyms and things like that. So, much love to you, man. Thank you for your
Yeah.
support. I appreciate you for hopping on, man, and giving your story to everyone. It's very inspirational. I love to get with you and talk to you a little bit more about it, but we have run out of time. So I thank you for stopping by, and we're going to end the show on that note. Thank you for listening, everyone, and we're out.